All right, hope you guys are doing well. Today we're going to be talking about how to get in shape when you're short on time. And this is part one. I'm going to make this a series because I have a lot to say on it. Not having enough time is something that executives struggle with probably the most. I would say when I ask you guys what the biggest challenge is, what's the main thing keeping you from getting into better shape, a lot of times the answer is time. And so this is going to be part one, and we're going to talk about effective training for losing body fat. Later this week, I'm going to be doing other trainings, like I'm going to do one on training for gaining muscle. I'm also going to do one on how to eat properly when you're short on time and teach you guys how to get into better shape even when you don't have a lot of free time or your schedule is packed or you're way overbooked, okay? So here's something to recognize. It's most likely, and this is good news, most likely the problem actually isn't that you don't have time. It's that what you're doing with the time you have when it comes to how you're working out and how you're eating, what you're doing is the wrong thing. You're doing the wrong things and you are essentially making mistakes that are making you lose ground with your fitness progress, okay? Because a lot of the executives that I talk to are already in a workout routine and are actually, once I look at it, spending plenty of time in the gym or plenty of time working out. It's just that time is not being used in the right ways to make progress effectively towards their goals. And so if that's you, you might be feeling like, gosh, I'm already spending X amount of hours working out per week. Also, I'm really active and my schedule is really packed. I'm not able to commit more time to this, so I feel stuck. Again, the good news is probably not that you need to spend more time. It's actually that you just need to be more effective with the time that you are spending working out. Again, that is good news because that's something that you have control over and something that you're able to adjust. If you can just learn a little bit about what proper training is when it comes to losing body fat or gaining muscle. And that's really where we need to start here is we've got to identify what's the goal, okay? If you walk into the gym and you are doing workouts, you can take your body in one of two directions. And first of all, if you don't know that might be one of the biggest errors you're making is you don't know if you are in a muscle building phase or a fat loss phase. Yes, sometimes they happen simultaneously, but you really want to be focused on one or the other. Otherwise, you're probably going to be treading water and not making progress in either direction. So first things first, know whether you need to lose body fat or gain muscle first. And honestly, there is a right time and a wrong time to begin each of those phases. If you're not sure, it might be good to talk to an expert. I am happy to give you feedback if that's something you want a perspective on from me. I guess maybe drop, shoot me a message or drop something in the comments below and we can chat about it. Anyway, first you need to identify your goal. And today, specifically, we're going to be talking about what effective training looks like when you're trying to lose body fat in the gym, okay? And then this is the second point that's really important. Before we even get into all of the training stuff, the technical stuff here, you need to know some of these things because if you don't, you're going to take off in the wrong direction and put your effort in the wrong places. And that is the best way to waste time is by going in the wrong direction, right? Putting all of your effort and energy in the wrong direction. And I don't want you to do that. So I want you to understand a little bit about how your body works, okay? Now, this is a really important point to understand. Whether you are losing weight or gaining weight will depend on your diet. And a great way to illustrate that is if you think about some of these bodybuilders, and I am so aware that you guys do not want to look like bodybuilders. Don't worry, I promise, even if you tried, you probably wouldn't. People are so afraid of lifting weights and all of a sudden looking like a bodybuilder. It's not going to happen, first of all. But you need to recognize that a lot of these bodybuilders, if you look at their transformations, right, from like when they start to when they step on stage, a lot of them go through these really big bulking phases, and then they go through a cut where they put on a lot of muscle and they gain weight, and then they go through a cutting phase where they cut body fat, and then they're stage ready at the end of it. And when they're going through the cutting phase, they are losing weight and losing body fat, okay? Something to recognize is they are in the gym lifting weights through the weight gain phase and also the weight loss phase. So I just want you to think, maybe it's not necessarily about like lifting weights in any certain way. Behind the scenes, what's creating that weight gain or weight loss is diet, okay? So you need to know there's not like some magical way of working out that burns body fat and then some drastically different way of working out that will make you gain weight or put on muscle, okay? We're going to talk more about it, but you need to be lifting weights either way. If you don't recognize that diet is the number one thing that will help you if you're trying to lose body fat, you will be wasting any time you spend in the gym, okay? Diet is the first thing that has to be put in place if you want to not waste time with whatever workouts you end up doing. Okay, so if you're someone who's spending time in the gym, understand this and make sure you understand that point before moving forward with any kind of workout routine. Okay, getting a little more specific with, okay, she's telling me diet is really important. What does she mean by that? Calories, maybe you don't want to hear me say this, but calories are important to understand. If you have come across things like tracking food, or you've heard about protein and calories, and maybe you've kind of messed around with tracking some things before and it hasn't worked for you, it doesn't mean that those things are useless. You have to realize that sometimes when you try things on your own, you might come across the right tools, and if you use them in the wrong ways, you will end up either hurting yourself or nothing will happen and you'll make no progress. My son the other day was sitting at the counter and he wanted to hammer a nail into a board. And I said, yes, that's fine if you want to do that. And he literally put the board up on the counter and was about to whack it with a hammer. And I was like, whoa, buddy, let's move it to a different surface, because that's not a safe place to do that. So then he takes the board and he puts it on his lap. And I'm like, okay, still not the right answer. And I'm in my head, I'm seeing the nail go through the board into his leg. Stopped him, finally got him out on our patio, which is concrete, and let him hammer the nail into the board successfully, right? If he would have used that tool in the wrong way, or, done it on the wrong surface, he would have hurt himself and probably been unsuccessful in hammering the nail into the board. Doesn't mean the hammer's useless, okay? Doesn't mean there was anything wrong with the tools he was using. He was just using them in the wrong ways, and so therefore it wouldn't have turned out well for him. Same thing with tracking food, same thing with calories. If you've tried tracking calories before, had a bad time with it, you probably weren't aiming for the right targets, or you weren't showed how to track properly, okay? Calories are important to understand if you're going to be spending time trying to lose body fat, because calories are actually energy. A calorie is a unit of measure. It's a way to measure energy. So calories are not evil. They don't need to be scary. You need to know that if you're in a surplus, a caloric surplus, that means you are eating more than your body needs to function each day, and your body will put on weight, okay? I'm going to talk to you guys about putting on muscle, not body fat, later this week, but today we're talking about weight loss, okay? If you are eating the same amount of calories that your body needs to function per day, you are eating maintenance calories, and your body will maintain its weight, neither lose nor gain weight. Okay, you'll maintain your weight. If you're in a caloric deficit, so eating less than your body needs to function per day, you will lose weight. Okay, so clearly, if you are wanting to lose body fat and that is your goal, this is something that you need to learn how to do. Okay, yes, training is definitely important, but calories, as you can see here, are very important. The phrase "you can't out-train a bad diet" is absolutely true. Okay. Abs are made in the kitchen. I would say that's kind of also true, right? You also need ab muscle, so you would need to know how to build a little bit of muscle too. But overall, it's very important that you guys understand how diet works so that you're not losing ground just by eating food, okay? And there is an order of operations. With all of this being said, there's an order of operations to be productive with your training. If you're going to spend any time in the gym, make sure that your diet is in place first. So here's what it looks like, okay? Diet has to be in check. I know I've just said this 1,000 times. How effective can your diet be? Well, I just had a client sign on with me, and in the first 2 weeks, he dropped over 10 pounds. We were doing our week 2 check-in, and he goes, yeah, I'm going to start doing workouts next week. And I'm like, okay, so you haven't even started your workouts yet. Now, I would not take someone all the way through a program without them training at all. That's not the goal, but you guys need to recognize, especially if you are an executive and you have busy seasons here or there and you're not able to make it to the gym, diet is the thing that will keep your feet on the ground. It will keep you making progress towards your goals even when you can't get to your training, or even if you can't get to the gym, okay? So if you want to talk about saving time and not having to rely on spending 20 hours in the gym each week to make progress, look at your diet. Ask yourself, how effective is your diet? Ask yourself, will I lose body fat through my diet alone? And if the answer is no, then your diet needs work before you go spending time in the gym, okay? So when it comes to saving time, diet is first. Getting a little bit more specific here, if we're looking at losing a pound of body fat per week, which is a great rate of loss per week, that's enough momentum to be excited about it. It's not so fast that you're gonna feel like you're starving if you do it the right way. if we look at how you lose a pound of body fat, you have to burn off an additional 3,500 calories from your maintenance calories. And if we're going to look at doing that over the course of a week, that means burning off an additional 500 calories per day from maintenance. Okay, this is that 500 calorie deficit. That's what we would call that. Okay, now sometimes people will rely on the gym in order to erase calories, to put them in that deficit. But that costs time. Yes, that works. Obviously, when you work out, you can erase calories that way, but that costs you a lot of time, right? If you're relying on training. Also, if the way that you are getting into a calorie deficit every day is through training alone, and if you skip a day, you're now in a 500 you're 500 calories over the target you need to be hitting for weight loss. That's not a whole lot of flexibility, right? That means if you take one day off of training, you don't have that 500 calorie deficit and you're not going to lose weight as fast. That's a problem. Anyway, so learning the way to save time here with this one and not have to rely on being in the gym every single day, and if you skip a day, you miss out on progress, is you need to learn to stay within your calorie limits. And again, this costs you no time. It just requires that you be educated on what your calorie limit is. So establishing a calorie range, again, this is important because not only is it important for fat loss, it's also important so that you have a better time with this whole process of getting into good shape, okay? A lot of times what I notice when I look at eating patterns with people is if we look at, I have my clients track their food. I don't know if you are new to these trainings, but if you've heard me talk before, you know that I'm big on tracking. Again, it's like running a company with no data would be like trying to lose weight without tracking. Like you absolutely need those numbers. It will help you reach your goals faster. And once you reach those goals, you will know what is on your plate because you have learned a little bit about it, and then you can do it intuitively. You can maintain intuitively. So if you're in the process of losing weight, you need to track your food, and you need to know why you're tracking it, and you need to know how to track it. And if you don't, invest in help from an expert, and they can help you with this. If they're a good coach, they will help you with that. Anyway, calorie ranges are important for you to know about yourself so that you are not eating too much and not losing weight, or you're not eating too little and not having any energy. And why I call it a range is it doesn't necessarily have to be like exactly on the dot. So, I could have someone eating 2,000 to 2,200 calories. That's a good example of a calorie range. Typically, it's pretty easy to find a range that fits you that you can fall into each day. Another reason it's important to establish a range is because if you are someone who struggles with overeating, a lot of times if you have a day where you overeat, you might think that you really messed up on that day and like that day is the problem. But a lot of times, if you were to track your food and assess it with a coach, you could look at the day before, and often, not always, but often the day before was really low calorie, and it contributed to the binge or overeating the next day. Okay, so that's another reason you want to balance out your calorie intake, just for some stability there. Okay. Also, if you're an executive, you need your brain to work, and you don't want to be having these massive fluctuations in energy of having like really low food intake one day and really high intake the next day. Okay. Last thing to say on food and what having a diet in check, like what does that actually look like? You need to set your protein targets. I'll say that beyond calories and protein, there are absolutely other things that end up being very important for people to focus on. It's different for each person beyond those two things, but two things that across the board everyone needs to learn is what their calorie range is and hitting optimal protein targets. Hitting your protein targets does not mean eating a little bit of chicken here and eating a little bit of fish there and eating some egg whites over here. It means hitting 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. One of the big things I do for my clients here is I give them practical ways of doing that, because if you are someone who's never tried to do this before, it's probably really overwhelming because I guarantee it's more protein than you're eating right now. So what I typically do is I will look at my client's diet. I'll find where they're already eating lean protein, and I'll just tell them to eat more of those foods. So that makes it a little bit easier. Okay, this is important because it will help you manage your hunger. Protein is one of the most powerful, all drugs out there included, protein is one of the most powerful hunger suppressants. So if you think about what causes rebound weight gain and what caused you to fall off your diet the last time you tried to cut out a million things, you were probably really hungry and eventually said, forget it, I can't do this, it's not even worth it, okay? And so when you lose weight, you have to realize that as you lose body fat and as you cut your calories, which is part of the weight loss process, you have a hunger hormone called ghrelin, and ghrelin will rise. in your body's, it's an effort from your body in order to try to gain back any weight that you've lost. It's a survival mechanism that's built in. So you need to be aware of that. And the only way to override that process of your hunger rising and ghrelin rising is to eat more protein. That is one of the most practical, powerful ways to address that issue. So extremely important, like extremely, extremely important that you do this, okay? Protein is also important for muscle retention, and I'm going to talk more about how to gain or retain lean muscle with training in a future episode, but muscle retention comes from eating enough protein, okay? It's absolutely essential, and if you lose weight without focusing on retaining muscle, you will be skinny fat. Because you'll lose weight. And this is how most people do it. This is also what contributes to rebound weight gain. When you lose weight and you lose muscle with it, that means you are burning fewer calories at rest, which means it's easier to gain back that weight. Okay, it's easier to overeat and gain the weight back. Also, you're just weaker. That's not good for your health. And also, if you want to lose weight and tone up while you lose weight and not just lose weight and look soft and squishy, then you need structure to your body. You need muscle on your body. Muscle looks good. So when people are talking about being toned, I know you don't want to look like a bodybuilder. Don't worry, you won't. You probably have a lot less lean muscle than you think you do. You need to optimize for muscle retention, okay? And this goes for the fat loss phase too. Again, I really need to reiterate these two things, that if you don't manage your hunger and you don't optimize for muscle retention, especially if you don't manage your hunger, you will start training and you will start working out and you will be hungrier and way more likely to overeat and gain everything back and then some. It's very important that you recognize how important diet is for successful fat loss. And if you're going to be working out, it's even more important. Okay. So when it comes to saving time, again, a lot of times I will talk to people and I'll ask them about their training routines. Like, what are you doing right now for workouts? Or how is your progress going this year? Are you focusing on reaching any fitness goals? Sometimes they'll say yes. And then the next thing they'll say is, I'm in the gym 7 days a week. That doesn't really mean anything unless you're making steady progress towards your goals. If you're in the gym 7 days a week and you're not making progress, those workouts are not effective and something needs to be addressed. And a lot of times it's because nothing is being done with diet. So you're missing a huge piece of the puzzle. You are missing out on a big way of getting ahead if you're not addressing your diet first. So number one way to save time and not be in the gym every day without making progress is to get your diet in check. Now, when it comes to training and workouts, when the phase of getting into better shape is fat loss, and that's what you're focused on right now. Because again, we can either focus on losing body fat, and that will look good as long as you retain lean muscle, or we can focus on building muscle while keeping fat gain to a minimum. So building lean muscle without looking fluffy. Those are the two directions that we can go in with your body, and both of those look better over time. Again, right now I'm talking about training in order to lose body fat. So assuming that's your goal, again, we want to burn calories in the gym and also focus on building or retaining lean muscle. Okay, and you need to be focused on that. These are some of the basics. These are the foundations of if you're gonna be in the gym at all and you wanna be making progress while you're in the gym, you want some kind of ROI from the time that you're spending in the gym. These are absolutely essential to have in your routine. And again, these are just the basics. I'm going to talk more on how to build lean muscle and get deeper into the training aspect of this in a further training. So number one, you have to be resistance training. A lot of times people want to go straight to cardio, and I'm going to talk more about that in a minute, but it's not the most effective way to lose body fat. Okay. Again, a lot of times people think about lifting weights in terms of bulking up and getting really big. No, if you are losing body fat, even more so, you need to be lifting weights to make sure that you're not losing muscle. If you don't use it, you lose it. That's true, right? So we need some kind of stimulus on our muscles for our bodies to be able to keep the muscle mass that we have. And even with that being said, you still lose a little bit of muscle when you lose body fat. It's just part of it. So you really need to be optimizing to save as much of it as you possibly can, okay? Now, resistance training is great. So if you are in the gym right now, I hope you're at least resistance training, okay? If you want to make sure you're not wasting time, at least start there. If you are wondering if you have enough equipment, even if you just have dumbbells, you can put together a great routine. Again, I'm going to talk more details about what your routine should look like in a future training, but even just dumbbells can do a great full body routine. You can hit absolutely every single muscle in your body with just a great set of dumbbells, okay? You don't need a lot. If you're gonna get a little bit more complex, you could add barbells to that. Dumbbells and barbells, oh my gosh, you have a great setup, like more than enough equipment. On top of that, if you wanna add machines, awesome. You know, if you have a gym with all the equipment, that's great. You just need to know that some kind of weights, you've gotta be using some kind of weights, okay? Honestly, you could do it with just a barbell too. You got to get a little creative, but I've set up a routine that's just barbells only for people before. So you can do that. Next, okay, so we've got you lifting weights. That's great. Next is periodization. So the other issue that I see people running into when it comes to training effectively, not just being in the gym, but like actually getting something done when you're in the gym, is they don't have organized workouts. So they'll maybe like go into the gym one week and kind of like hit various body parts, and then the next week it's different. Maybe similar, but like different, you know? A lot of times people will use the routines that they used from whatever sport they were in, you know, a long time ago, and they'll kind of tweak it and do sort of the same routine, but like switch it up every time. And there's not really any organization. Unfortunately, one of the big ways that I see people using disorganized routines is through trainers. I know it's tempting to just show up and want to trust that trainer, but unfortunately, you really need to examine what kind of workout structure they're delivering when you walk into the gym and you do your workouts. Are your workouts organized? Because if they are, and you're following some kind of periodization, you should know exactly what the plan is for not just that week, but the next 4 to 6 weeks, okay? So you should be following routine weekly workouts that are the same each week for 4 to 6 weeks, and then you get a new set of workouts, okay? And something to consider here, it doesn't mean that you need to ditch your trainer, but essentially if a trainer is really being useful and trying to help you reach goals as fast as possible, they should really just be basically standing by while you do the same weekly routine for 4 to 6 weeks, and then you get a new routine, okay? They should not be reinventing the wheel every time you go to the gym. If they are, they might be giving you some good entertainment. It might be fun and exciting to not know what you're going to do every time you show up to the gym, but you're not using your time wisely, and you need to know that. Ask yourself how many people you know that work out with trainers and don't look any different. It's a lot of people. Most people in the gym look the same, right? And unfortunately, most of the regulars in the gym that I have observed over the years are regulars, and they put in their time, or they show up with their trainers and they look the same. So if you guys want to look better than the average person that goes to the gym regularly, you have to think more critically, okay? And that means learning some of the success mechanisms that you need to include if you want your training to be productive, okay? Again, if you're just someone who wants to work out for fun, keep doing what you're doing. If you want to work out to see your body go through a transformation and actually reach goals, then you need to know how to set up your workouts properly, okay? So not random workouts. You also shouldn't be doing the exact same workout routine every time you go into the gym. You do need new workouts every 4 to 6 weeks, okay? Because otherwise your muscles will adapt to what you're doing and they won't continue to change, okay? Another quick thing to mention here is progressive overload. So within those 4 to 6 weeks, as you repeat your weekly routine, you need to be adding reps, sets, weight, or slowing down your reps so that you've got more time under tension, okay? You need to be essentially asking more of your muscles as time goes on. And that is how your muscles grow, or at least stay on your body while you're losing body fat. Because again, when you're losing body fat, you're at risk for losing muscle too. You don't want that, okay? Another reason that all of this is important to do things like resistance training and to have the right structure set up is so that you can, again, retain or gain lean muscle, and more muscle means more calories burned at rest. And that is the equivalent to having a higher metabolism. Okay, there's a lot of things that can't do that. Have a lot to say with the weight loss drugs that are popular these days, but yeah, if you can spend time in the gym and optimize for building lean muscle, this is absolutely something that's worth your time. This is something that will speed up the process of fat loss in general, and again, it's worth optimizing for, okay? This also contributes to better health, better endurance, and better strength, right? One of the things that will cost a lot of time is if you are continuously in the habit of starting a new routine and then stopping it. That's where your time's going. That will not just take your time and your hours on a weekly basis, that will take your years, right? So ask yourself, if that's you, if you've been in the cycle of like starting a new routine, being really excited, and then stopping it, it's time to get some structure. And structure really is the first thing that you need to make sure is correct before you go hiring a coach to help you. You got to have the right structure first, right? And then if you want to outsource a trainer, great, because you like the in-person dynamic, fine. but your plan needs to be intelligently designed first. Okay. Consistency isn't even important until you have the right plan, because if you're being consistent with a plan that is not effective, that is a setup for burnout. And that's what creates a cycle of being on the wagon, off the wagon, in the gym, not in the gym. Okay. So before you hit go, before you step on the gas, you need some of these things in place. And again, if you aren't going to set this up yourself, that's where you need to look into outsourcing help from an expert to do it for you, especially if you don't have the time to set this up. Because if you're in the gym, all of this can be executed in 4 days, 45 minutes a day. These things do not take a lot of time, right? These are just features of your workouts that you need to have if you are in the gym at all. Nowhere in here do I say that you need to be in the gym 7 days a week. Okay. These are just factors of your workouts that need to be at play. Beyond resistance training, again, this is the first thing you need to do. You need to, first of all, make sure you're losing weight with your diet alone. Next thing would be lifting weights, again, to burn some more calories. That's great, but also to optimize for retaining lean muscle. And then next, you can look at your steps and your overall activity. This is important. 10K per day is great, but also you can get away with less than that if you don't have time to get in 10,000 steps, as long as you're not losing ground with your diet. Okay. The best way to burn calories is by not eating them in the first place. That requires 0 minutes from you, right? Lastly, and this is when it comes to order of operations, this is the last thing that I would add to someone's routine regularly. First of all, some is okay. Okay. I don't know that I would ever tell somebody to do absolutely zero cardio. If they wanted to do some, that's fine. But I would never, ever, ever start off with cardio as a priority way of creating fat loss. So a little bit is okay, right? But if you're in the very beginning of your fat loss phase, I would honestly start off with no more than 1 day per week. And I mean that. And it's important to make sure all of these other things are in place first before you even consider adding more cardio to move the scale down more. Okay. And only if a true plateau is reached. And that means that you have someone actually analyzing what you're doing, and that coach or that consultant tells you, okay, you're actually stuck. Now we're okay to add in a little bit of cardio. I keep it as like a trick, kept in your back pocket for later. We want to wait as long as possible before we have to add in cardio. Okay. Because cardio cannot and won't ever build muscle. That's not the effect that it has on your body. If anything, it can be muscle wasting if you're not eating properly, if you're not eating enough protein. Okay. If you're in too severe of a deficit, you can waste muscle by doing too much cardio. That's not good, right? It's also just not, again, like I said, diet is going to be the best way for you to lose body fat. What cardio does when it comes to fat loss is it erases calories, right? Like when you're doing cardio, not a whole lot is happening. You're not building muscle. If you are someone who wants to run a marathon, then yes, obviously you're going to have to run. But in terms of body composition and when it comes to body fat, cardio is essentially erasing calories. And again, the fastest way to do that is to just not eat them in the first place. Okay. So when it comes to saving time, and if you're someone who's short on time, cardio is not the most effective way to lose body fat. Another issue that cardio can create, and this can cost you time if you're continuously overeating, is cardio raises your hunger. It just does. Weightlifting is less likely to do that. All right. So obviously cardio for these reasons is not going to be a first line of defense when it comes to losing body fat. And if you do use it, it should be way later in your program and sort of as a last resort thing. All right. Hopefully this gave you guys some helpful perspective that maybe you didn't have before. Again, if you want to, first of all, if you want these notes that I just covered in this training, drop notes below. If you are interested in either getting this training or other trainings that I make on here sent directly to your email on autopilot, then either DM me your email or you can drop it below. And again, stay tuned because I'm going to be talking in part 2 about effective training for muscle gain. And I'm also going to be talking about how to eat right when you're short on time, because I know that time is in fact a big challenge for a lot of you guys. So hope you guys are having a great start to the week, and I'll be back.